Here it is, rephrased. Hello, friends. On January 13th, 2012 at 7:15 p.m., the world's biggest Italian cruise ship, Costa Concordia, embarked on a 7-day European cruise. The size of this gargantuan vessel was only bigger than the Titanic. However, its passenger capacity could take in another 2,000 passengers. It carried 4,252 people aboard. The ship was equipped with the most fantastic entertainment options: 4 swimming pools, 5 restaurants, 13 bars, a casino, a basketball court, an absolutely new fitness center with a gym, a sauna, and a Turkish bath, and even an F1 racing simulator. Its first destination, the city of Savona in Italy, was a day's journey away. However, it was only 2.5 hours after setting off that a sharp, ear-piercing shriek sliced through the ship. The lights were plunged into darkness as the ship began to tilt precariously to one side. It was 9:45 p.m. If some passengers were already being treated to dinner while others slept in their cabins. Dishes slid off the tables as passengers appeared from their rooms, mystified by what was happening around them. It was just an electrical failure, so they were told through the intercom. In fact, the ship's engine had failed. As reported, Captain Francesco Schettino intended to hide that fact. A couple of minutes later, the vessel tilted over to the other side and alarmed other passengers even more. There were thoughts of yet another Titanic disaster, especially since the song "My Heart Will Go On" from the Titanic was playing in the dining hall. Water began flooding the lower decks as the ship continued to tilt. Passengers realized the dire situation, but they weren't receiving proper information. Why was the captain silent? Owned by the Italian company Costa Concordia, later acquired by Carnival Corporation, the Costa Concordia was a symbol of luxury. Built at a cost of $570 million, 25 billion rupees at the time, it was the largest Italian cruise ship of its era. Francesco Schettino, who had been with the company since 2002, was in command. But at 7:18 p.m., just after leaving port, he deviated from the ship's planned route. This was no coincidence. Schettino maneuvered the ship along Giglio Island for a sail-by, a sort of glory maneuver designed to impress the islanders. When a ship reaches this size, it typically maintains a safe distance of 7 to 8 kilometers from shore. This vessel sailed within 150 meters, a safe distance from shallow waters and covered rocks. He had personal reasons for sailing close to Giglio Island. He wanted to pay his respects to his former mentor, Mario Palombo, who lived there. Still, even when Palombo told him over the phone that he wasn't there, Schettino went on. The call was cut off at 9:40 p.m., and within minutes, the ship ran into underwater rocks. The collision ripped a 70-meter gash into the ship's hull, allowing water to flood in rapidly. Andrea Carollo, a 26-year-old third officer, awoke to find water already filling the hallways. Despite efforts to start the emergency diesel generator, the crew failed. Schettino downplayed the crisis by telling the press it was just a blackout, even as the ship kept drifting further from the island. It wasn't until he realized it was sinking in open waters that he ordered the ship to turn around toward the island and tilt it again. Passengers became in touch with the local police. It was 10:12 p.m. when the Italian Coast Guard contacted, and this was perhaps Schettino's biggest lie, that it was only a trivial affair. It wasn't before 10:22 p.m. that he finally admitted it was a collision and sought help from a tugboat. However, it was at 10:33 p.m. when a general alarm for emergency was sounded and advised passengers to go to their assembly areas. At 10:48 p.m., the ship tilted 30 degrees. Over an hour had elapsed since the accident. At 10:54 p.m., Captain Schettino finally gave the order to abandon the ship. Imagine this. Over 4,200 people were left stranded on a ship tilted at 30 degrees, with their lower cabins submerged in water, and chaos at work on the upper decks. The captain had made one sensible decision to turn back before. Now he used one good decision to proclaim himself a hero, despite a series of wrong decisions and blatant lies. As the ship went underwater, people started panicking and spreading confusion. Prior to Schettino's order, some had already escaped aboard the lifeboats or managed to swim on their own to the next island. Panic gripped them after the announcement. People rushed towards the lifeboats and started fighting and pushing one another for dear life. Fortunately, some of the crew members, who were fed up with the behavior of the captain, took the initiative and started evacuating passengers even before Schettino's order. Heroism from the crew surfaced despite desperate odds. Karnatha Rameshana, an Indian employee, managed to overcome the barrier of language and assist stranded passengers, the elderly blind woman in particular. Others assisted paralytic passengers, walking them to safety. Another Indian crew member, Russell Rebello, gave up his life jacket to save other passengers. Unfortunately, he could not survive the attempt to rescue him. In stark contrast, however, Captain Schettino abandoned the ship at 11:19 p.m., leaving passengers and crew to fend for themselves. This act earned him the nickname Captain Coward. In contrast, Deputy Mayor Mario Pellegrini of Giglio Island, along with the Italian Coast Guard, was very brave. Pellegrini jumped onto the sinking ship to help, while the Coast Guard worked continuously throughout the night. Most of the passengers were rescued by morning, but 32 drowned. Those who were left alive, to many in shock, to hypothermia, were cared for by Giglio's 700 residents, who threw open their homes, schools, and churches. Rescue operations continued for weeks, involving divers and engineers battling high water pressure to free those still trapped. The sunken ship posed an environmental hazard, requiring a monumental $1.2 billion recovery operation. Fuel removal alone took over a month. Engineers then used a combination of steel structures and floating caissons to right and tow the ship, a process lasting years. By 2017, the ship was scrapped. Legal battles ensued. Survivors were issued refunds of their tickets and €11,000 compensation, while the families of victims received private compensation. Then Captain Schettino was finally convicted of manslaughter in 2017 and handed the prison sentence of 16 years. His claims of accidentally falling into a lifeboat were dismissed as more lies. Despite Schettino's failings, other captains like Roberto Bosio showed what true leadership means. He began evacuating passengers even before the official order, later stating, "Only a disgraceful man would leave his passengers behind. I just did my duty." The Costa Concordia disaster remains a lesson. Leadership demands accountability, integrity, and courage. Leaders who lie and avoid responsibility endanger everyone around them.